Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for attending the FEW Nexus conference. Distinguished guests, my name is Ju-Yeon Cho, and it is an honor for me to be hosting the event today. Thank you very much. And for the smooth operation of this conference, please check that your mobile phones are turned off or put on silent mode. And for those who need interpretation services, please turn to channel 1 for Korean and channel 2 for English. The conference today is titled Mighty Microbes for the Energy Revolution, and it will offer brand new perspectives on solving the nexus of food, energy, and water, also known as FEW or FEW. The conference will focus on micro-based biotechnology in the context of new technology-intensive energy and its possible effect on the development of sustainable economy. And so without further delay, ladies and gentlemen, we would like to invite a speaker for the congratulatory address, which will be delivered by Professor Jung-Hae Kim. And Professor Kim is serving as the first president of the Korea Association of Bioengineering and is the former dean of the College of Life Science and Bioengineering at KAIST. Please welcome Professor with a big hand.
Distinguished participants and speakers from home and abroad, welcome to FEW Nexus conference hosted by Daesung Group. I am Jung-Hae Kim, a chairperson of Korea Federation of Biotechnology Societies. It's a great honor to make a congratulatory address for 70th anniversary of Daesung Group and FEW Nexus conference entitled Mighty Microbes for the Energy Evolution here today. And on behalf of the Korea Federation of Biotechnology, I would like to express my sincere appreciation to Chairman of Daesung Group, Young-Hoon Kim, and the staff of the group for their devotion to the organizing this conference. Also, I would like to extend my warm welcome to all of the participants and special thanks to speakers for their contribution to the wonderful conference today, including distinguished professors from home and abroad. Professor Mario Tredici, Professor Ioannis Ieropoulos, Professor Yoon-Gun Lee, Professor Chol-Gyun Lee, Professor Sang-Yup Lee, and Professor Byung-Kwan Cho. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I am delighted that such a meaningful conference is being held here today, along with the 70th anniversary of Daesung Group, who is a leading company in the area of energy in our country. As we know well, microbe-driven technologies are attracting more and more attention. The holding of the FEW Nexus conference is indeed most timely. The impact of microbe-driven technologies on humans is to address some of the world's most pressing challenges. We bioengineers are working to create innovative applications for consumers, address global energy demand, restore and protect the environment, including water treatment, develop productivity and functionality in food, and deliver new therapies. Our vision is to create bioengineered solutions essential for a healthier and environmentally sustainable planet through the engineering of microbes. Now, our ability to read, write, and design the code of life DNA, that is genome editing technologies, makes it possible to engineer microbes for our purpose. This will be creating revolutionary products and solutions, inspiring imaginations and improving everyday life. By developing high-quality, sustainable choices that are good for the world, we endeavor to help people feel better about the products such as the food, energy, and water, which are used and consumed every day. I hope that this content may serve as a useful basis for discussions among participants and speakers today under the theme of FEW Nexus. Distinguished participants and speakers, throughout history, opportunities created by revolutionary technologies have often brought daunting challenges. However, humanity has successful in finding a good way to make full use of the positive side of technology while mitigating its bad. For example, currently many of bioprocesses are utilizing food materials such as corn as starting materials. This is one of the challenges that we must solve for next generation. As an alternative, we could utilize non-food biomass such as cellulosic materials, algal biomass, and natural gases. I firmly believe that we can overcome the obstacles as has been the case in the past. Once again, I would like to express my sincere wishes that this FEW Nexus conference will serve as a timely and valuable opportunity to explore better ways to create microbe-driven solutions for sustainable food, energy, and water for our next generation. And I wish you all a very pleasant and rewarding stay. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you, Professor Kim, for those insightful words. And next, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce the chairman and CEO of Daesung Group, Mr. Young-hoon David Kim, who will deliver his speech to set the tone of the conference. Please welcome him with a big round of applause.
Good afternoon. Welcome, everybody. I'd like to extend my special thanks to Professor Kim for your kind words of congratulations. Perhaps many of you here attending this conference are wondering why all of a sudden microbes? Well, the reason is simple. I believe that we must proactively make a firm commitment to a new energy future in this era of the grand energy transition. Quite simply, we must abandon our dependence on fossil fuels such as oil and natural gas, even though natural gas is our main line of business. These fossil fuels are, in fact, the product of dead microorganisms. Dead is a key word. Recall that it was heat and pressure that turned dead organisms into coal, oil, and gas. However, we must now look to living organisms, in our case, mighty microbes, instead, to provide the source of truly affordable, reliable, and sustainable energy. That's because these fossil fuels need to be combusted to provide energy, creating carbon dioxide and other pollutants. We are now living with the serious consequences of our dependence on the deposits of dead microbes. Yes, fossil fuels are a relatively reliable source of energy, but it turns out that they cannot be long-term sustainable solutions. So we are forced to look for an alternative to these fossil fuels. As we all see now, renewable energy sources such as solar and wind power are emerging as alternatives. However, despite the sustainability of renewable energy, it is far from being reliable, mainly due to problems with intermittence. In other words, we cannot control the sun and wind. Who can control them? No one. For the foreseeable future, intermittence will be a lingering conundrum. 2 days ago, the Financial Times reported that all the world's large battery systems in use today would together only store enough power to meet global electricity demand for a few seconds. Not a day or month, just few seconds. That's it. That's our capacity to store energy at the moment. This stark reality persuaded me to explore the possibilities of radically innovative new forms of energy. This path led me to one inevitable conclusion. We need to leave behind our dependence on dead microbes and instead embrace the potential of living microbes. To my surprise, I was glad to discover that substantial technological progress is already being made in the pursuit of energy from living microorganisms. This includes the development of the microbial fuel cell, MFC in short, microbial electrolysis cell, MEC in short, energy from algae, and metabolic engineering, to name just but a few. Furthermore, MEC with power-to-gas technology can offer an alternative energy storage system, storing energy in the form of CH4 or NH3. This storage system appears to be far better than a lithium-based one in industrial scale. That's because microbes are universally accessible, whereas lithium is geographically and geologically a finite resource. Right now, microbial research is gathering momentum with each passing day. We are on the hunt for more efficient microbes. One place to find them may be the ocean, the blue ocean, where more than 90% of microorganisms exist. Furthermore, the rapid progress in synthetic genomics means that sooner or later we may see designer microbes, as Professor Kim just mentioned. These microbes will offer even more efficiency and capacity that allow us to successfully scale up and commercialize energy from microbes. We have already benefited from these mighty microbes through the energy called bioenergy. From my own experience, I learned that microorganisms are a reliable and sustainable source of energy, as well as they can be affordable. Let me share with you a concrete example. In Daesun Group's hometown of Daegu, we have a project called landfill gas, that is LFG in short. This LFG plant not only keeps the environment clean, but also produces methane gas through an aerobic process. This LFG project began operations over 10 years ago and was quickly registered as a clean development mechanism under the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. Obviously, I feel good about the fact that local air quality has improved and that we can sell the collected gas for a district heating plant. Yet what is more meaningful is that we have created not only an environmentally sustainable project, but also a lucrative business model. In fact, this project showcases that microbes can be a supplier of a reliable and sustainable, as well as affordable energy resource. So what do these all mean for the future of mighty microbes? The first industrial revolution was powered by coal and the steam engine. In the case of the second industrial revolution, petroleum and electricity were the driving force. Now we foresee the advent of new energy revolution to be galvanized by mighty microbes. Furthermore, in view of the close interconnections between the energy, food, and water sectors, as we call food Nexus, we can expect the water and food sectors can be positively energized as well. Energy as a source of material for pesticides and fertilizers, and as a power source for food storage and distribution are good examples of energy's contributions to the food sectors. In the case of the water sector, its significance can be found in the processes of desalination, wastewater treatment, and long-distance distribution of water through pipelines. Moreover, the food, energy, and water sectors are not only closely linked, they together form the foundation of the global economy. Hence, the new energy revolution to be brought about by mighty microbes inevitably lead to a positive impetus for global economic revolution by securing a resilient food, water, and energy nexus. In conclusion, on the occasion of Daesun Group's 70th anniversary, we have drawn a roadmap for our centennial vision. We are committed to becoming a total solution provider for a resilient food, energy, and water nexus. I believe this vision can be realized through an energy revolution with mighty microbes at the vanguard. I sincerely hope you find today's conference both informative and inspiring. Thank you very much.
Thank you once again, Chairman Kim, for the insight and wisdom, as well as leading us into a future vision that has sustainable solutions of mighty microbes. Thank you once again for the great speech. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we have a lot of distinguished speakers here today. And so to lead us off into that presentation, I'd like to introduce Professor Byung-Kwan Cho, a professor at KAIST. Also, I will now be yielding the microphone over to the moderator, who will also be explaining about the speakers. Okay. Moderator, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. So, good afternoon, everybody, ladies and gentlemen. So it is my great honor to introduce the speakers today, and then great for the great conference. So we have a theme, Mighty Microbes, for the energy revolution today. So as we know, energy is one of the most important resources for mankind, and essential for human, but will become very limited resources are food, energy, and water, which have an inseparable relation. For example, the production of electricity utilize water, and vice versa. The transportation of food requires energy. So therefore, FEW, fuel, must be sustainable for next generation and balanced between rich and poor countries for humanity. So as one of the solutions, the innovative microbe-driven technologies are receiving great attention now. So it is my great honor to introduce our speaker, who will talk about our theme, Mighty Microbes for the energy revolution. So today, we have 5 speakers from Italy, Singapore, and United Kingdom and Korea. So first speaker is Professor Cheol-Kyun Lee, who is currently an Inha Fellow Professor at the Department of Biological Engineering, Inha University, Korea. And second speaker is Professor Maria Tredesi, who is full professor at the University of Florence, where he holds courses on agricultural microbiology and microbial biotechnology. And third speaker will be Professor Yannis Ieropoulos, who is a professor of bioenergy and self-sustainable systems and an EPSRC Career Acceleration Fellow at the University of the West of England, Bristol. First speaker will be the Professor Yuan Kun Lee, who is a professor of National University of Singapore. He is currently a president of International Union of Microbiological Society. And the last speaker will be Professor Sang-Yep Lee, who is a distinguished professor at the Department of Chemical and Biomolecular Engineering at KAIST, Korea. Professor Lee is currently the Dean of KAIST Institutes, Director of Bioprocess Engineering Research Center, and Director of Bioinformatics Research Center. So, from now, we will have 5 non-stop talks from the invited speakers, and please give a big applause to welcome the first speaker, Professor Cheol-Kyun Lee. Thank you.
It's my great honor. Yeah, it's my great honor to be here, and I'm very glad to be here to deliver my talk and what I think and what I do on the few point of view. So I'll discuss about some critical criteria for successful biofuels from few points. In other words, the food, energy, and water, as you already heard, must be considered together, and it's combined. And we have to join the forces by integrating fusion technology to develop these kind of fuels and water and food, solving these problems. So the current problems on the food, energy, and water, and probably as you all remember that we had some petroleum shock in year 2008. This is the petroleum price at year 2008, and before that happened, everybody thought if the petroleum price goes over $100 per barrel, then biofuel will replace that petroleum. But as you probably remember, that never happened. And what really happened was this. This is a corn price for the same period, and it exactly overlapped with the petroleum price, except a few points, like year 2005 and 2006, there was some incident in the Middle East. Because of that, the petroleum price went up a little bit high. But other than that, what that means is, as the petroleum price goes up, more and more corns were converted into bioethanol, and because of that, some people must use corn for like other purposes, like feed or like other thing, like oil, something. And those people cannot use corn anymore, and they have to use something else. So all other grains, the prices of all other grains have been went up, as you probably remember. Even ramen and cookies and everything went up. But the real problem at the time was this, that phosphate price went up a lot, and potassium price also went up. And almost all the natural resources has been went up. That means because the corn was needed, more and more people wants to grow culture, and because of that, they need more fertilizer. So the best three fertilizer are the nitrate and phosphate and the K. And all those things has been went up. These are the corn yield change between 1865 to year 2005. In 1865, the corn can produce like 1,500 kilogram per hectare per year. And these days, we can produce more than 10,000 kilograms of corn per hectare per year. And the reason for that is not because of GMO or single cross or double cross, all kinds of biotechnology. The real reason is, as you can see in the middle, more and more fertilizer was applied per hectare of the land. And because of that, more and more grain could be obtained. But the real problem is, as you heard about Leahy-Bees law, if you add some of the fertilizer, you can increase your productivity. But once you are done with that, I mean, after you apply some more fertilizer, then giving more fertilizer will not yield more. So in other words, you have to give every single nutrients to grow that culture. So that won't happen. And if you see the middle graph more carefully, then the line is not straight anymore. Even though you give more fertilizer, your productivity will not increase proportionally. And this is the world fertilizer consumption. And as I said, nitrate, phosphate, and potassium, those are three main fertilizers. And as you can see, the demand until like the year 2025 is expected to grow very fast. That's because the population will increase a lot, but we have less land to culture our food. So this is a quick calculation about phosphorus. In year 2010, humankind generate like 30 gigatons of carbon dioxide and emitted into the atmosphere. And if you want to fix only 5% of that, probably we will need about 18.5 megatons of phosphate just to culture that. That will give about 240 megatons of crude algal oil, which can be replaced biocrude, crude oil. But the problem is, as you can see in the bottom graph, the phosphate comes from the rock, special rock, and that cannot be regenerated until like a million years. It can only regenerate after a million years. So as you can see, the black line is the demand, and the other colored line is the production of each mine. And as you can see, the supply is already limited. So if you want to use phosphate to culture like a biofuels, it cannot be sustained. And these are the energy consumption in year 2001. As you can see, the first one was United States, and the second one on the most left was China. And if I compare that with the year 2011, then China and India has been increased over 200%. And if you see the right panel, then the population of China and India are the largest in the world. In other words, if China and Indian people use exact amount of energy like we do, then they will consume probably 10 times more energy than now. So in other words, the energy demand will keep increasing, but how to supply that energy, that's the another problem. And as you can see here, China became the world's largest energy consumer since the year 2007. And in Korea, everybody is exporting energy here, but we are importing like 97% of our energy outside of Korea. And this is world energy usage. The blue ones are the OECD countries. And if you see the forecast until like 2040, the energy consumption by the OECD countries, developed countries, will not increase that much. But non-OECD countries will increase a lot. That's because their living standard will improve, and they will, of course, use more energy. And even after, as you can see in the bottom, even after 2035, non-OECD countries account for almost all the rising shares of this kind of carbon dioxide emission. But still, if you think about per capita energy consumption level, it'll be only half of the OECD country, even in the year 2035. And if you see the right panel, the red line is total energy consumption, and the blue line is population. And as you can see, the energy consumption rate has been increased a lot faster than the population increase. If you divide into two, the energy per capita is in the green line, and which has been increased recently very fast. And this is the population growth, and we are expecting to have like 9 billion people in year 2040, and by the end of this century, we'll have well over 11 billion people. So how will you feed those people, and how will you support those energy? How will you maintain the fresh water? That's all combined, and we have to think together. And for the energy, these are the demand, and the petroleum or the fossil fuel will decrease, even though that there are some other sources. But what I wanted to say is there are renewable energy, so we called, and almost all the renewable energy generate electricity. So electricity does not have any problem if you use right away, but if you want to store it, then it will be very hard. So this is the energy density. The x-axis is how much energy can be stored per kilogram of the material, and the y-axis is how much energy can be stored per volume of that energy. And as Chairman Kim just said, even for the lithium-ion battery, one of the best battery we have is only here. And currently, the fossil fuel, which are red dots, the diesel, gasoline, have that much of energy density. So in other words, I just flew in this morning from Paris, and that airplane will not take off if you have full of lithium battery inside it without petroleum fuel. So the green dots are the biofuels, and one of the good things about biofuels, it can replace the current internal combustion engine, and you can use almost all the infrastructure we already have. And these are the calculation about fresh water. Just to produce 1 liter of ethanol, we need at least 1,000 liters of water for irrigation. And about that, or 4 times more of water will be lost by evaporation. And we need at least 2 square meters of area for cultivation. This was too high. I was calculating the other way. To replace 110 million barrels of gasoline usage in Korea, we will need 35 billion tons of irrigation water, which is twice of the amount of current usage in Korea, and requires 3.52 million hectares of cultivation, which is also twice of the crop field area in Korea. And this is too high, so I was double check with the real data from the US, and it was correct proportionally. And as you already heard, this is a water stress index from OECD countries. Korea is the most severe water stress country in the world, and followed by Belgium and Spain, but they are only in the middle 30s. In other words, they are medium stressed countries, and all the other OECD countries are much less stressed than Korea. And so, as I said, the criteria for the successful biofuel, they have to be very sustainable. So in other words, it can be produced every year, and it should not compete with food, either the land or fertilizer, etc. And we must consume every single molecule in the biomass. I'll get back to that point later. And it should not use underground resources, even though it's fresh water. And it must be environmentally safe. And there are some possible solutions for that. I'm not talking about this is the only solution. It's one of the possibility. Blue ocean for blue biotechnology. A few years ago, before 2008, everybody thought that biofuels are green. But now we think ethanol from corn, that's very bad for the greenhouse gas emission and water usage, fertilizer usage, pesticides, and energy usage, and the efficiency per unit area. That's all bad. So in other words, we should not convert corn into ethanol. Since we don't have enough time, I will not go through all of this, but if you go to LG to make biodiesel, then almost everything is white except two things. The first one is the water has some problem and energy has some problem. And if we use seawater instead of fresh water, then we can solve the first problem. And if we use also sea, instead of electricity, if we use tidal energy, wind energy, and wave energy, then we can solve the other problem. So in other words, if we make some kind of microalgae to produce biodiesel, then it can be sustainable and eco-friendly, and it's very clean energy. So what I meant was, sorry, this was supposed to be a movie, but anyway, I'm sorry. This is that sunlight will goes in, and then carbon dioxide from the atmosphere will go in. So in other words, we are culturing microalgae in the semi-permeable membrane. So microalgae and the produced bioenergy will not go out. It will be contained inside the membrane. And as the cell grow, the more and more phosphate and nitrate from the seawater will goes in. So in other words, if there are already gold and lithium in the seawater, but the concentration is too low if you want to harvest it. So it never be economical. Same thing here. If you use the energy to concentrate that, it never be economical. But this one, all the supply is made by the concentration difference. So without using the actual artificial energy, we can concentrate microalgae, to a point that we have some economic value. So if I explain that again, this is seawater inside, and outside is seawater, and we have microalgae inside the bag. As the cell grow, all the nutrients will consumed, and they will stop. But if I use semi-permeable membrane, as the cell grow, microalgae will use the nutrient, and as the nutrient is depleted, more and more nutrient will come in from the outside. In other words, we can concentrate it without using any energy. So it must be economically feasible. The second point is we have to use solar energy, because that's the only energy we can use for free, and it can be used for sustainable energy. Almost all the renewable energy, like solar power, or solar panel, or solar heat, or the wind energy, is somehow related to sun. So in other words, the only true meaning of renewable energy will be solar energy. So there are some advantages of ocean culture, and since I'm out of time, I'll skip it. And this is the ocean testbed. We are culturing it. So we have a very large facility in the ocean to culture, to prove our concept. And as we prove our concept, our facility has been enlarged, and currently it's 1 hectare in size, and we are developing various technologies out of that. This was supposed to be also the movie, but anyway, on the bottom is the semi-permeable membrane. So the nutrients will come in from the bottom, and the CO2 and the sunlight will go from the top. So in other words, we can clean the carbon dioxide, which was released into the atmosphere from the fossil fuel. We can clean that while we can clean the seawater, prevent harmful algal bloom, and we can generate energy and some kind of feed out of that microalgae. And we try to prove that that kind of biodiesel can be run. And so what I wanted to say is we want to use just the water and carbon dioxide. In other words, we want to use CHO. And while we are using that, we produce the product we're using CHO. If I make that point again, then we can use only the CHO, and the rest, everything else should be recycled, and the feed and the energy and other thing will be removed continuously. So the last point is it should be flexible and diverse. and we must maintain the biological diversity of the Earth. And in other words, we have to produce as many forms and as many substrates and as many species possible. So this is my last point. And we call our industry economy as petroleum industry because we use every single molecule from gas to tar. We use every single molecule. And if you want to go to bio-based in the economy, the same thing must be true. In other words, we have to use every single molecule, including DNA, proteins, and lipid, everything from the biomass. And if you see F4, probably you think some of these, but from now on, please think free from fossil fuel, that's F4. So in someday, if you go to the gas station, you have a choice to get from corn or lignin or microalgae. And thank you very much. It's a non-stop, so. That's the forward and the backward.
Well, good afternoon. It's a big pleasure to be here and a big honor to present my my work as a microbiologist at the University of Florence. I've been working on marine microalgae for bioenergy and food. This is the title of my presentation. Going to numbers on food, maybe, well, I was surprised to see that there is plenty of food in the world. Okay, we have about 1 ton of food per capita, per person. It's a lot, but the problem is food production is complex, and what is not happening is people is not well fed for several reasons. Food is waste. Food goes to feed and to biofuels, and then there is unequal distribution. And I was surprised also to see that food shortage is not a question of Africa and India, but of a wealthy country as well. You can see, for example, in the US, 1/6 of the population is lacking food. Feeding 9 billion, we have already heard this, will be a big challenge, essentially because agriculture has limitation and externalities, big limitation. We have heard already energy. Intensive agriculture needs a lot of energy, needs a lot of water. 70% of water is consumed by agriculture. And in the future, there will be nothing as cheap energy. Energy will be very expensive, and even fossil energy because of the environmental implication. And water is ending, is not only in Africa, but it's ending in other countries as well. In the US, in Europe, 20% of Europe is affected by water scarcity. These are pictures taken a couple of days ago in my region, Tuscany. There is an emergency there, and I recently heard that Korea is also heavily affected by the water shortage. And a message to you and to the young students that are here, don't forget the Dust Bowl. Go and look for the Dust Bowl. It was really a tragic situation. When we talk of malnutrition, it's not only providing food and the nourishment, the lack of calories and protein. It's mainly the hidden hunger is the lack of vitamins and micronutrients. It's affecting 2 billion people. And then we have overweight and obesity, another problem of malnutrition. And when we make the sum, we get up that half of the population is suffering because of malnutrition. So we have to fight this problem. We have to solve this problem. And the main, there are several, of course, possibilities and solutions, but the main will be to find rich food which is rich in vitamins, in protein, and in minerals. Let's go to the subject of my talk, with this microalgae. If microalgae can be a source of food for humanity. Well, algae is food already. There are very many examples in the world. This is one, for example, in Africa, in the region around Lake Chad. The Kanembu women harvest Arthrospira, well known as spirulina, since centuries, and they collect the algae, they dry the algae, and they cook and use for every week. A couple of meals are made with algae, and you can see that this help a lot the health of the people, and also has some social meaning. Algae in general have a very well balanced composition. They are rich in protein and lipids, and many of them, especially marine algae, are rich in polyunsaturated fatty acids, something that we really need. They have vitamins. If you take a good mix of algae, you can cover all your vitamin needs, essential amino acids. But the advantages of algae that I would like to stress today is that they can be produced in the deserts, in marginal area. You don't need soil, you don't need fertile soil. And you can use seawater or brackish water. You don't need fresh water. You don't need pesticides. And you can use the nutrients that you provide with a very high efficiency, near to 100%. And also the productivity of protein and vitamins can be much higher than traditional crops. Another issue is that we can modify the biochemical composition of the biomass simply by adding in the grow medium some ingredients, some minerals, even fatty acid. You add the fatty acid, and algae can incorporate this fatty acid in their biomass. However, producing algae, it's a very complex process. Okay, don't think that is easy, because there are many, many limitations. And algae are microbes, I'm talking of microalgae, a few microns. For example, photosynthetic efficiency. Don't think of impressive photosynthetic efficiencies. When you go outdoors, large plants, the maximum of efficiency that you can get actually at present is 1.5%. And this means, for example, in my country, no more than 50 tons of dry weight per year and per hectare. So it's a good productivity, but it's not huge. So please be aware of this limitation. I've been working with algae since, well, almost more than 35, 37 years. And I will not describe, of course, all the reactors and the algae that have been growing, but want to show you this special photobioreactor that we call the Greenwald panel. And I'm asking, is this system suitable for production of commodities, production of food, and production of bioenergy? The system is quite well known and diffuse. Has been used for pilot research by, for example, Eni is the oil company in Italy. This is the case of an application in Sweden in a cement factory. This is far as the north of Chile, in the Atacama Desert. We have a pilot system there. We have a system in Saudi Arabia. We have been using the system for several European projects. And for example, in this case, this is a project, the coordinator is Volkswagen, and we are testing the production of hydrocarbons. And in this case, production in another project, the production of molecules for antibiofilm against bacteria that form biofilm. So a system that it's also used in a commercial application. You can see here just the case. But can it be a suitable tool for biofuel production? Of course, if you want to answer this question, you need to make an energy analysis, what I call NER, net energy ratio. I'm not going into the details. There is a paper here you can see, but to have an energy balance, you have to calculate the energy output that you get, and of course the energy inputs. And when I'm talking of energy input, I'm talking of fossil energy. The energy output in my case is very simple. It's the amount of biomass that I can get from the 1 hectare in 1 year. And this is 36 tons per hectare per year. In our condition, I'm talking of central Italy. The value of this is about 800 gigajoules in terms of energy. Energy inputs are not that easy. You have to calculate the embodied energy, the energy of fertilizer, the energy of operation. To make the story short, this is the output. The value is 800 gigajoule. But when you sum the energy inputs, the energy that you need to get the biomass, it ends up that it's much higher, and the energy balance, it's less than unit. You put more energy in than what you get out. If you move to a better situation, a better location, Northern Africa, for example, you can almost double the biomass production. But you can see that the energy balance is increasing. It's better. I cannot see. It's around 0.8. Okay, it's there. But still not 1. And we have been working a lot recently to improve this energy balance with new materials, recycling the gas that exit the photobioreactors, playing with the tilting of the bioreactor. But we were able to go over the unit only by integrating photovoltaics in the system. Okay, I cannot go into detail, but if we integrate photovoltaic cells in the system, we do not lose productivity, and we get the energy that we need to operate the system. Okay, this is just to compare. It's 1.7 energy balance is very small compared to other alternative source of energy. So to conclude, despite billions of dollars invested, in euros invested in algae biofuel, this process is not ready yet. We have to go back in the laboratory and to do more research. Another question, a big question that I have is, what will be the cost? What is the cost of producing algae in our system? Again, you can go and see this paper. I will give you here only the most important numbers. The cost of 1 hectare of this system is about 1,600,000 euro. And the depreciation will be around 90,000. I'm talking of 1 hectare of those panels. Operating cost will sum up to 380,000. And since we produce 36 tons, that is 30,000 kilos, here is the cost of the biomass. It's, what about 11? Around 11 euro per kilo. This is the cost in our system. If we change the situation, the location I'm in, and let's say we go to Tunisia, which is a much better place, we can half the cost because of essentially because of labor, okay, much cheaper, and you can go to 5. This is 5 euro per kilo. You can decrease the cost even in Tuscany if you increase the size. From 1 hectare to 100 hectare, you go to a cost of 4. If you combine the two, you can go to 2.4, which become 1.8 euro or almost dollar per kilo if you use no cooling, that is thermotolerant algae. What does it mean? Let's say we can produce algae now at about 2 euro per kilo, $2,000 per ton. And if we compare it with other commodities, we are, well, let's say a little higher than pig meat and lower than cow meat, but much, much higher than vegetables. Soy, it costs much less. But we have to consider also that there is a lot of protein in this algae. And when we compare the costs in terms of proteins, you can see that 1 kilo of protein from algae costs 3.6, which is less than the cost of protein in meat, although it's higher than the cost of protein in soybean, in vegetables. Another thing which is important to point out is that this comparison is made, but the production of algae today is almost nothing in the world, only a few thousand tons, while the other commodities, we are talking of millions of tons. I'm going to conclude with this question. Is this system, our system we have been studying for years, a suitable tool for biofuel and food production? And I have honestly to say, not yet. However, we have to continue working because we cannot continue doing business as usual, okay? Agriculture has externalities. We are losing soil, there is contamination, there is deforestation and biodiversity loss, desertification. We have ocean dead zone related to the fertilizer that agriculture is losing. And last but not least, agriculture is responsible of global warming. About 1/3 of the gases are emitted because of by agriculture. So microalgae is a source of food. I'm optimist. There is a big but, there is a big problem, the cost. It's too expensive. But there is also a hope. And the hope is that we are really at the beginning of algae domestication. It's something new for us. This is a little bit of my story. And sometimes I get a little bit depressed when I see what I've done in almost 40 years. Now, that's in 1980, that was that panel, and 40 years later, there is other panel. The difference is that they are moving, they are integrated with photovoltaics. But then I say, come on, the advancement of applied science takes time. Okay, you can see this is 6,000 years, and this is what happened. In conclusion, this is our present. And if we do not act now, this will be our present to the next generation. We cannot do that. Thank you very much.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. It's a great pleasure and an honor to be here. I'm here to talk about self-sustainable systems and the way that we can learn from nature. There's a lot we can learn from nature. This is what we've been doing for a number of years. We've been studying live organisms, live animals, how they manage to control the energy intake, their digestion, and then look after the waste without necessarily imposing on the environment. So some of the examples we've been looking at, obviously we're very fascinated with the electric eel. That's part of the work we've been doing, but there's also examples of symbiotic organisms like the cow with the ruminant stomach and little insects that we can model to build our robots and therefore prove that the technology we're developing works. But the important message here is that nature is self-sustainable and we need to learn how to be self-sustainable as well. So the way that we've approached this and the way that we've tried to understand some of these principles is by looking at microorganisms, and putting them to work in the technology known as microbial fuel cells. So here's what a microbial fuel cell looks like. This is a very stereotypical kind of analytical model, not very well designed for practical applications, but an extremely valuable tool for understanding how the science works. And inside, we have essentially an anode, negative terminal, a cathode, a positive terminal, and a semi-permeable separator in the middle. It could be a membrane, which is expensive. It could also be a ceramic material, which is very, very cheap. So we take the microbes from the natural environment, we put them inside that chamber, and then we feed the microbes with their favorite items on the menu. And microbes are not really fussy. They can eat anything we throw at them. By connecting that negative electrode to the positive on the other side, the cathode, through a circuit, then we can allow the electrons generated from anaerobic respiration to flow, and that's how current generated. So that's how it works. Now, you might ask, how much energy is generated from this microbial fuel cell? We've heard so much about it. What's the actual yield? What's the output? So we've been taking these examples and trying to design them so that we can put them on our robots. I come from a robotics laboratory. We play with gadgets and toys. But the serious side of it is to put the microbes to the test and produce work in the Newtonian sense. Get the microbes to produce electricity, use that electricity to drive something and see it for ourselves. So I asked the question, how much energy? When I started 15 years ago, that was nanowatts. We're now up to milliwatts per microbial fuel cell, which is tiny compared to what we know from our everyday life, but it's a start. And using it in a practical application, we're demonstrating how it could be implemented and how it could be scaled up. So the movie you see playing, this is our wedding cake lookalike, EcoBot 3. So we started with EcoBots 1, 2, EcoBot 3, EcoBot 4 is in the making. And what that shows is that that's a self-sustainable robot that has completed the thermodynamic cycle for at least 9 days. We left it there on its own. We basically locked it in that incubator. We gave it nothing, and we allowed it to run up and down and go and collect its own food and water and run itself. So you see it moving up and down. The real-time clock in the background shows how long it takes for it to go to sleep and then wake up to continue with its operation. And effectively, this thing has been going up and down by simply collecting waste on the one hand and water on the other hand, and moving up back and forth. That's fine. It's a robot. It's a benchtop demonstration. Now, is that really enough? Is milliwatts really enough? We've demonstrated something that runs on the bench. Can we scale up the technology? So we tried to address that by basically miniaturizing the microbial fuel cell and then stacking it as a pile. So for the same footprint, we have a number of microbial fuel cells. And if we do the engineering right and connect them well, then we can go from the milliwatts to the watts. And what you see there is our first example where we showed how we could charge a mobile phone from a stack of microbial fuel cells. Since we've miniaturized it, we've also looked at how we could use it as a wearable if we're looking into the future and we're thinking about exoskeletons and we would need power to do all these things. Remember, I come from a robotics laboratory. We have to be thinking about these things. But so the work we've been doing all these years has got some, you could say, a global dimension. The most recent work that we've done in the demonstration of the wearables, just to make it fit with the context, was those microbes were fed with human urine, neat human urine. Now that brings us into the world of sanitation. And this is the work that's funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, which is effectively to look at how we can use this technology to improve sanitation in the developing world, but at the same time generate useful levels of energy remotely, where there's no grid and there's no sewerage system. So on the right-hand side, what you see are our examples of what we call the P-power urinals, which are effectively standard urinals. This is in collaboration with Oxfam, GB. Those urinals are very similar to what Oxfam sends to refugee camps. And the main difference is what you see underneath is essentially a microbial fuel cell stack, which takes the human urine and generates electricity. Those are roofed, so there's a ceiling and internal lighting. And the internal lighting of those toilets is powered by the microbial fuel cells. This week is the week of testing. Every year, Glastonbury Music Festival actually happens as we speak. I'm showing the example from last year, and we're also testing the same urinal, bigger urinal, for this year to show how it could be better scaled up. So talking about the developing world and the developed world differences. So here's a communal toilet and why we're doing this research. in the developed world. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing kind of exotic or luxurious. But here's a communal toilet in the developing world. There's a lot of things wrong with that. And that's what we are trying to address by looking at, we started by looking at how a tiny device could be used to power robots. And now we're looking at how the same device can be scaled up in order to power remote locations and clean the wastewater so that people that need it can have it. And the plan that we have for the number of programs we're running is to take this microbial fuel cell technology, put it in these p-urinals, however they may look, and then start distributing around the world. It's actually part of our research program. We have a very large part which is going to be about field trials. And Glastonbury, although it's a music festival and it's in the UK, it's the closest we can get to a refugee camp, if you catch my drift. There's a lot of people, and it's essentially 250,000 people gathered together across a window of 6 days on a farm, and then they go away. The damage that's done to that farm is phenomenal. And the Glastonbury Festival organizers are working with us, and we're trying to learn from that process how we could help them not damage the land, but still carry on with the festival. But by doing that, we're learning a lot about our field trials. So the way we envisage the future, and it is an optimistic view, and this is how we would like to see it. Here's the Ichabod we developed some years ago, and here's Wall-E, that we all know from the Disney motion picture. If we put the two together, then we have a Wall-E with a hat and microbial fuel cells, and perhaps we can think that our landfill sites can be cleaned by these guys that we will be sending out, and instead we can have green parks. We also have demonstrated, and I haven't spoken about this, that microbial fuel cells could go into bricks, into building blocks. And we now have a program funded by the European Commission, which is allowing us to investigate how microbial fuel cells could actually be part of the structure. So the household becomes self-sustainable. It has its own technology. It will be, inevitably, it will be hybrid technology, but it has its own ability to clean its waste and generate its own energy. So being off-grid. So why don't we start thinking about our wastewater treatment plants, which we're currently having with some outdated technologies running, and our large-scale power stations, put them together so that the wastewater treatment plants become power stations. And with our friends helping to clean the landfills, and with our households as the self-sustainable entities that we will be living in, this is the future that we envisage. I'd like to thank you for your attention.
Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I'd like to register my appreciation for the invitation organizer to be here in this high level of seminar discussion. Really fantastic. And to put the perspective to my presentation, first of all, I'll acknowledge that the world is not the same, although we call it the world. In fact, the population distribution is not quite the same. Therefore, the problem, different part of the world will be different. Nevertheless, for the purpose of this presentation, I'll describe the world as a whole and discuss accordingly. First of all, the question we ask is that, do we have too many people? Right? Look at it. This media graph has been presented by Professor Lee just now as well. So basically, you can see that since 1960, the world population is increasing linearly, 1 million in about 12 to 13 years, which means that the population growth rate of the world is decreasing ever since, and it's predicted that by the year of 2002 or 2024, the world population growth rate will be 0. There will be no more population increase then. So perhaps not a problem, but the problem is that, as you can see, for that to reach 2024, our population will be double of what we have at present. In fact, could it be a problem in population growth? Could be a problem in a sense, not so much for the resources and other means, but rather to sustain human population. For example, now, only in Africa, the population growth rate is a birth death replacement rate of 2.21. Anywhere else is lower than 2.21. So we can't reproduce ourselves. In Singapore, I'm not sure about Korea, the government given big award for people to have children. I mean, that means that, all right, population may problem. The question is that from now till then, 2024, do we have enough to sustain ourselves? What is the bottleneck? What is the real problems that we do have faced so that we can provide the appropriate solution? The first thing, of course, is energy supply, which in fact the conference is about, whether we have enough energy. And you can see here that oil gas running out in 40, 50 years. Definitely we have to look for other things. Coal can give us going for another about 50 years, which means that it lasts for about 100 years from now. And then after that, what? After that, of course, you have other energy, alternative energy. You have biomass, you have solar, you have hydro energy, you have nuclear energy, and something else, and that need to be further looked into as well. But the problem, I think, is not so much energy, but the product of energy production. Because until we have a credible alternative energy, now the problem we are facing is not so much the energy shortage, but rather the carbon dioxide generated from the fossil fuels, from the fuels that has energy being stored in the hydrocarbon, for example. In this case, you can see here from the graph on the left, on the right-hand side, you can see here the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is already exceeding that of the usual carbon cycles, the global carbon cycle, which suggests that the capacity, nature's capacity to remove oxygen to keep a balanced ecosystem, to keep a balanced carbon cycle is already broken. It has overrun by the overgeneration of carbon dioxide in this case, that's been generated in our present process. So for now, the important thing to do is that, all right, energy is important in the long run, but short run, medium terms, our problem is how to remove the energy. There are many means of removing carbon dioxide, physical means, chemical means, but most of the time is that they're being absorbed, being kept, being stored somewhere else. Some say underground, some something else, but it's not really recycling the carbon. The only means, of course, is biological in recycling the carbon dioxide. Then, can we do it? Certainly, nature cannot do it because carbon dioxide is accumulating. You can see that. So how should we do that? And then it actually overcompound by other problems as well. So let's go through and then we see how we can deal with it. Second thing is that do we have enough to eat? In fact, it was mentioned by the other speakers as well. Not so much that we don't have enough things to do. We have more than what we can eat. I can see, I'm talking about global. Can see that the thin line here represent the energy that is being consumed. The food being consumed. The thick line on top is the food being produced. So we are producing more food than what we can consume. And therefore, it is not surprising that it was predicted that from now on, in fact, this middle graph there, the price of food is not going to change. No inflation, meaning that we produce enough. The problem is because that we waste food. Estimate that 30% of food being wasted. So we're not making proper use of that. The worst thing is that this food wastage plus what we eat and we give out, that represent food waste need to be processed. Otherwise, it's going to pollute the environment, in particular the water. In this case, we have big ecological problem here. So the food distribution, the food starvations and so on that was mentioned before as well, is made more of distribution rather than real production systems. So you can see that we have problem. We do have serious problem. The root of problem is very much the management itself. We don't know how to manage it, and we unable to maximize what we have and what produce and so on. So I'm always told to talk about water. Water and energy and food are all linked together. Do we have enough water? Except in Middle East, where the the water consumption per capita and water available per capita is almost equal, which means that there are shortage of water. Anywhere else is more than enough. Latin America, the differences is more than 100 times. However, you can see Latin America is being graded as medium in global energy poverty, and Asia, the green one, is being graded as high, which means that we have problem in clean water supply. That is a key word. Not so much that we don't have water, but we don't have enough clean water that goes out, that boils down to water treatment itself and also recycling. So in this case, you see they're all linked together. Clean water, the food supply, energy recycle, energy and all roll together. It's no wonder the last three speakers, in fact, all these issues are being mentioned and being discussed as well. So this is compound aggravated by the fact that the observation, the trend that people are moving to cities. So now we have 44% of people in the city already, and it's predicted that very soon it's going to be 66%, which means that people population are being concentrated in very small area, which means that a lot of waste being produced there, a lot of energy, water, and food being consumed at the same place, and that create terrible burdens for the process to maintain the balanced recycles. And that become the major issue. And we in Singapore face that. We experience that already. Just want to cite you example. The Singapore is a small country. You know that we have present 5.4 million people, or people very little people, and in 70 we decided to close all pig farm. For reasons that every pig of equal weight as me produce 7 times the waste more than me, which means that in order to keep this pig farm and keep Singapore clean and tidy and water being properly recycled and so on, we have to build a lot more sewage treatment plant, which we couldn't afford. So we decided to close port and import pork from Korea. Your black pig is fantastic, and from elsewhere as well. But this is escapism. In fact, we are escaping the problem. We are not solving the problem. We are taking advantage of other people. But that is a different issue altogether. Nevertheless, all in all, the question is that can we maintain a balanced ecosystem? And what is the problem? What are we facing? The nature has been keeping the whole ecosystem balanced for millions of years. This is without any problem. What is our problem? Can we mimic? Can we learn from ecology and nature and to do it better? In fact, we are already doing that. We know that everything recycles, so that everything is balanced. You can see that you have photosynthesis at the top of the ecosystems, then you utilize it and going down, eventually waste and being recycled again. And in our current waste stream process, we mimic nature as well. From that of additive starch, from that of oxidation pond, for that anaerobic digestion tank, and everything, we use it to recycle waste, be it human or animal, and we use it also to treat industrial waste as well. Depend on the kind of waste, of course, and this be indicated in the top right-hand corner. But the problem is that all these are too natural. What's wrong with nature? Because nature has their own prerogative, their own priority. It's not that they always do what we want. For example, in the process, additive starch in the oxygen tank. We grow photosynthetic cells, microalgae and bacteria for the recycling process. Before that, you have bacteria breaking down complex sugar and so on. Bacteria doesn't want to grow fast. They grow fast, they die. Everyone know that if you have a pool pond, suddenly you have outbursts of algal growth. You have this. Then next few days, the whole system collapse or algae die. This is not the art. It's not for them. They just want to survive. They don't want to grow fast. They don't want to grow a lot as well. So in fact, if you remember the orange agent, the 2,4-D, which sprayed to kill plant, in fact, is a growth factor. It made the plant grow so fast that it exhausts itself, it starves itself to death, and as a result, the leaf fall off and tree die. So they don't want to grow fast, they grow slowly to maintain themselves well. And this is our problem. The problem is that, all right, nature is a good way for us to copy, but nature has a limitation. Nature has their own priority. They want to survive. They don't want to serve us. If we are to use nature to provide the service we have, we will be at the age whereby we use horse to carry us around. That's nature. So you want to go farther than that, you have to abandon the horse and go to car. So that is a big jump. Perhaps mentally we have to change that mental stage, mental jump as well. Perhaps this is not new, nothing wrong new about that. Perhaps we can learn from pharmaceutical industry. In pharmaceutical industry, they do things, they take advantage of nature, but they want the nature to do service us, not to service them. Take one typical example, penicillin production, antibiotic production. Antibiotic product is produced in very small amount for their cells, for their own purpose. They want to kill off the bacteria so that their next generation can flourish when nutrients are available. That's their purpose. Then there's no reason for them to produce a lot, because what is the point? They kill the bacteria. Why do they want to produce more than what they require? So what we did to get penicillin to treat our disease, to treat so many people, is that we make the penicillin to be monster, so that they produce a lot of penicillin, channel all the carbon's energy to penicillin production rather than growth, which they must be stupid. But then we make them do that. So as a result, we have very cheap penicillin. And if we want to think of getting these cells, algae, bacteria, to do job for us, to produce food, to produce energy, or do anything else, we have to modify them. First of all, is that mentioned as well. We need to understand how they work. Example of penicillin is very good because the whole pathway of penicillin was investigated, and therefore mutant will be able to generate it, and therefore system designed for that purpose as well. So that's one thing that urgently need for the purpose of this seminar. Mario and others have done great jobs in designing bioreactors, and people has been growing it in different kind of systems, different place locations, and we know already a lot on how to grow photosynthetic cells. But the thing now, probably we need, urgent need, is to understand how the cell function in harvesting light energy, in capturing carbon dioxide, in making them to produce the thing we want, be it biofuels oil, or pharmaceutical products, or pigments, or food, or anything else. We have to channel them to channel the carbon and energy to what we want. But this is the urgent need we need. And I think personally, there's not enough thing done in the area, because by itself it's a very difficult subject to look into. So, and also, we can learn from the food industry as well. Food has been industry in producing funny things for us, using special design processes, special design algae, microorganism, or of enzyme itself, so that as a result, you get all different kinds of products you want, which the cell is not desirable, it's not designed for the cell itself, but because we want, therefore we do that. In short, basically, we have enough technology knowledge how to do this. The thing now is that perhaps we want to focus on, ask ourselves, what do we need from the primary producers, for the photosynthetic cells, from algae and bacteria? How do we modify them and design process to channel all their energy, channel all their efforts in producing this product for us, rather than based on natural scenarios and assume that they are going to do what they can do for us. They wouldn't. They would not, because it is not. How do we do that? I mean, yeah. Okay. Right. All in all, what I'm saying, summing out, is very simple. Much of the science I mentioned just now, I'm going to present it tomorrow when we visit in this biotechnology symposium in KAIST in technical detail and data. For now, I just want to talk about the concept because short times. All in all, what I'm saying is that, all right, we know this is the way to go. And it has been an agricultural approach. Now perhaps it's time for us to convert it into an industrial approach that we are very familiar with in producing anything else we need, we want. And perhaps then, in this case, there's hope in biotechnology in this area of biofuels and food and water recycling. So thank you very much, my humble opinion for that short presentation. Thank you.
Can I have that? Well, thank you, Professor Lee, to end with the need for metabolic engineering, because that's what I'm going to talk about. But before starting, I want to congratulate Chairman Kim and also family of Daesun Group for the 70th year anniversary. And also thank you for putting this wonderful conference together. And as you can see, Chairman Kim has already proposed his great vision, saying mighty microbes for the energy revolution. If I may twist a little bit, maybe it'll be better to have it as mighty microbes for the revolution in the fields of energy, food, nutrition, chemicals, and materials. So that's probably what I'm going to be talking about. So we obviously heard the stories on our heavy dependence on fossil resources, including oil, natural gas. But obviously we want to move away from using fossil resources, as Chairman Kim mentioned already before. Now we want to change petrochemical industry into bio-based sustainable industry. And we have been using metabolic engineering to develop mighty microbes capable of producing a variety of chemicals and materials, which they normally don't, but we tweak around the metabolic network so that they can produce them. So you are looking at the slides where we are producing various carboxylic acids, dicarboxylic acid, diamines, alcohols, hydroxy acids, hydroxy amino acids, sometimes aromatic compounds, and even polymers themselves as well. So let me showcase some of the examples, because you probably want to know what mighty microbes can do nowadays. So first example is butanol. One of the slides the previous speaker showed, showing that ethanol, which is a standard biofuel nowadays, actually is a garbage. Well, I shouldn't say garbage because it's very good for drinking. So I think you should continue to do so, but it's not good as a fuel because it's low energy density, and more importantly, it is hygroscopic, which means it absorbs water. What do I mean absorbing water? It cannot be fuel then. That's why you cannot pump it through the pipes, because it will rotten the pipe. The infrastructure cost will be several $1 billion. So no one risks. That's why all the bioethanol is currently transported by trucks. So I made a joke that you're producing ethanol and you're using ethanol by transporting with a truck. But anyways, butanol, on the other hand, is 4-carbon alcohol. So it's much more resembling gasoline. And also energy density is similar to gasoline. And it's much less hygroscopic, so it's not water absorbing. So it's a great biofuel. And there is a bug that produces butanol in nature. And actually, it is one of the oldest fermentation process going back to the World War II. So Clostridium acidobutylicum is anaerobic bacterium that produces acetone, butanol, and ethanol. And you can tweak around the metabolic pathway, which will take half an hour to explain, so I'm not going to do that. But as you can see from this different pathway engineering, we are able to shoot the flux towards the butanol formation rather than more into acetone, which is not fuel. And then we are able to overproduce a butanol with a very high productivity. And this kind of strain engineering has been coupled with a lot of effort at one of the petrochemical industry company, that's GS Caltex. So now they have built demo plant in Yosu area, which produces not 400 ton per year, it's 400,000 ton per year. It's demo plant, small scale, but still it's a proof of concept demonstration that actually it is going into the chemical industry for the production. Another example is innovation. Obviously, come to think of it, why we are producing butanol? Why can't we produce gasoline directly? Well, gasoline is obviously non-natural mixture chemical. So you can tweak around the metabolic pathways so that cells can now produce gasoline. So the way we produce it is basically utilizing maximum utilization of what nature gave us. That is, cells have to make fatty acids for their membrane generation, etc. But unfortunately, the length of carbon in those fatty acids is quite long. C16, so there's 16 carbons, 18 carbons, maybe a little bit suitable for diesel, but not for gasoline. So what we had to do was we had to engineer the fatty acid biosynthetic pathway so that cells now, instead of making long chain carbon fatty acid, they make shorter carbon chain fatty acid without knowing what they are doing for our purpose. And then we tweaked around and then provided the synthetic pathway which do not exist in nature, but reassemble the three-step enzymatic conversion pathway that convert short-chain fatty acid into a mixture of hydrocarbons, and that is gasoline. Now we have significantly improved the titer, so now it's reaching several tens of grams per liter, which is not disclosed yet, so please be tuned to see our paper coming out. Another one is the small company in San Diego called Genomedica. They did a fantastic job on making E. coli to produce 1,4-butanediol. 1,4-butanediol is used as a chemical, the monomer for polymer that is used for spandex. And we need such polymers for everyday life. Now, how they do that is very similar to what I showed you for gasoline production. So they had to tweak around the metabolic pathways so that now E. coli, which they'd never seen this product before. They never make 1,4-butanediol, but now the pathway have been designed so that now can produce this butanediol. And the collaboration with between Novamont and Genomedica resulted in the construction of plant in Italy for the production of 30,000 ton per year scale plant for the 1,4-butanediol. So these two examples, in addition to others which I don't have time for, are demonstrating that already these chemicals and materials plant which are relying on bio-based production are reality, not is a hype anymore. Another example is, can we now go for high-value product? Because bioprocess sometimes costs a lot more money than petrochemical process, so it's not easy to compete. So can we produce high-value products such as engineering plastics? Yes, if you can produce diamines, there's amine on both sides, and also dicarboxylic acid, and then you can copolymerize them to produce polyamides or nylon, as you know. Then we can now access to have engineering plastics, and yes, we can, because I'm talking, that means that we already have been able to make them. And one of them is, for example, putrescine. Putrescine is 4-carbon diamine. And is there anyone who has a relative whose job is homicide detective? No? Because putrescine is the smell of rotting dead body. But that is a valuable diamine which can be used to make nylon 4 series. And a company like a DSM, a great Netherlands chemical company, make tons of money out of nylon 4,6 and now nylon 4,10. So now we have secured bio-based 4-carbon diamine for the production of such engineering plastics. More recently, I'm talking about 2 months ago, we already reported for the first time, production of lactams. Now, obviously, lactams are very difficult to produce because they are non-natural chemicals. So we tweaked around the metabolic pathways again, and also importantly, we have found this enzyme and engineered the enzyme, which is called acyl-CoA transferase. And then we are able to convert the intermediate of the metabolites and then convert them to corresponding lactams we want to use, and they can be used as a source for the production of various polymers. More recently, that's now end of May, we have published the results on the first demonstration of production of terephthalic acid. As you know, terephthalic acid, together with monoethylene glycol, makes the world's largest polymer. That is PET, polyethylene terephthalate, which you see from this water bottle and others. Now, terephthalic acid, as you can see from this nasty structure, nature didn't give you the pathway for the production. That's why I gave my student project. KAIST, usually we do something that has not been done or that has been sort of suggested that is not possible. Okay, then that's a good topic for PhD thesis. So that's what we do, and that's what we did. And unfortunately, we were not able to produce terephthalic acid all the way from glucose or sucrose, but we were able to convert it from paraxylene. Paraxylene is abundant petrochemical, and then afterwards, to make terephthalic acid out of paraxylene, you have to use very harsh condition together with hazardous chemicals, including bromide. So can we change it into more environmentally friendly bioconversion process? And that's what we finished for the first time. So we had to reassemble metabolic pathways composed of enzymes coming from two different microorganisms into one heterologous organism. And then we, of course, optimize the expression level of all different enzymes. And then finally, we were able to convert paraxylene to terephthalic acid. But more importantly, the conversion yield is even higher than the world's best process developed by Amoco. So that is the power of mighty microbe, as the chairman Kim said. Polylactic acid. Polylactic acid is bio-based polymer, they claim. And what they do is they use low pH tolerant yeast strain to produce lactic acid with a very high productivity. And then you purify them, and then do very complicated chemical polymerization process, which involves formation of dimer, that's lactide, and then you do the ring opening polymerization. However, we were able to produce polyhydroxyalkanoic acid, that's microbial polyester, for a long time of research. We were producing basically tons of plastic by one-step fermentation. So why can we produce polylactic acid by one-step fermentation? Same reason. Nature didn't give you with enzymes or pathways. It's non-natural polymer. So, okay, then we take a project. So we did that again. We created two enzymes that do not exist in nature. So now these two enzymes sequentially convert lactic acid to lactyl-CoA, that's high energy charged form, and then you can co-polymerize it into the polymer with whatever co-monomer you want to have. The result of this is not only the production of polylactic acid by one-step fermentation, which is again for the first time, but in addition, now you can co-polymerize it with something else. For example, if you co-polymerize with glycolic acid, now you are getting PLGA polymer, which is very expensive, FDA-approved biomedical polymer. So you can make a lot of money out of selling this biomedical polymer. Second, we can even co-polymerize it together with 4-hydroxybutyrate. That means that because it's a linear chain, it gives you flexibility of polymer. So now medical doctors are accessible to biocompatible polymer, not only this rigid PLGA, but now PLGA together with 4-HB, which gives you flexible material, which can be finding new applications in medical field. Now let me switch gears to the nutrition and medicine part briefly. When you have a headache, obviously in Western world, you take one of three. From left, aspirin, Tylenol, or Advil, right? And that has been approved by FDA through mechanism of action. So it binds to the receptor, and then it basically reduces the pain. In Orient, on the other hand, you take this. Black soup of something which you never know. But you were given to drink it. So, okay, I drink it. But funny thing is that when you have a headache, actually there are many different medicine when you go to traditional Oriental medicine doctors. So for example, if you have a headache with a back pain and you feel cold without dry mice, then you will be given a medicine named 천궁 다조산. Never mind, you don't have to know what it is. But that's the mixture of plants shown in the picture. If you have a headache with severe tiredness, you will be given with 강활승습탕. And there are tons of different names for this. So if you look at this black soup again, the only problem is that if you drink this for a month, and if you feel tired and you have problem with your liver, and if you go see medical doctor in Western hospital, you will be immediately kicked out. Get out of my office. If you had the traditional Oriental medicine, don't come back to see me again. Why? You took toxins, and now you come to treat you. No way, I'm not going to do that. Well, the reason is that this is a mixture of a lot of different secondary metabolites existing in various plants. Half of them, as a simplified example, will be great medicine, because that has been proven through many thousands of years of experience and recorded in Dongi Bogam, that is 403-year-old book. And that's all experimentally proven and clinically proven. Problem, we do not know what's in there, so it contains some chemicals and natural products that are toxic to your kidney and liver. So can we then identify only those active ingredients that are non-toxic but useful for human being or your health? So that's the approach you can take through systems of biological analysis. So we have taken a lot of bioinformatic systems biological approaches to identify all non-functional ingredients in different plants that's recorded. We have proven that the synergistic action really happens. So that means that US FDA should change the rule of approving the drugs. It should not be single target, single molecule based therapy. Now it should be multi-compound, multi-target therapy, because considering the complexity of human body, that should be the way we should be treated. And this will be now also based on mechanisms of action, and I hope that the future healthcare will be changed to this type of approach, that is marriage of Eastern and Western medicine. Now, if you look at this table, this is the typical dinner I have at home every day. And you know that's a lie, right? But we do occasionally have this kind of dinner. And if you look at the portfolio of dishes, it's a beautiful mixture of everything. That's why we are intaking as a food and nutrition a variety that maintains and balances your body. And that's the start basis of maintaining health. That's why, you know, Korean food is so healthy. Now, if you compare it and link it to your microbiome, every single one of you in this room contains 1.2 kilogram to 1.8 kilogram of microbiome in your gut. And they are not just there to digest what you eat. They are communicating with you. And if you have problems with your microbiome, you're dead. So don't disrespect your microbes. And that's why, you know, Chairman Kim said it's mighty microbes, and it's saving you. So you have to talk a lot about this impact of food and nutrition on your health through the interaction with microbes. One example for the overproduction of such things, where red pigment tomato is called lycopene, as shown in this picture. And actually, you can engineer E. coli, as you can see from this metabolic chart, which is already simplified, but complex enough. So I'm not going to explain, but we have introduced a variety of enzymes and pathways to produce with E. coli, the red pigment of tomato, and this is what we get. As you can see from the top circles, that's the test tube picture taken from the bottom. As you can see, we were able to engineer E. coli to produce lycopene to the level that if you use the best strain here and do the 5-liter fermentation by fat batch culture, you can produce, after 48 hours of cultivation, the amount of lycopene that is equivalent to the amount you can extract from 5 tons of tomato. So it's 1,000-fold, but also please remember it took 2 days to do the fermentation, and to grow tomato it takes 50 days. This is the power of metabolic engineering, and it can be extended to production of various secondary metabolites, such as Taxol, which is anti-cancer agent, or artemisinin, that uses to treat the pathogens, and also even opioids. Now you don't have to probably grow opioid plants, and instead you can do microbial fermentation. And of course, there are a lot of very health-linked compounds you can produce. So this is the future of metabolic engineering. So microbial biotechnology, it will become essential for sustainable production of chemicals, fuels, and materials, but also efficient production of functional nutrients and fine chemicals for the benefit of human health care. With that, I want to thank my group members who did all the work, and thank you very much for your attention. Now, who I should give this? There's no one following me.
Or the staff.
Or I
that's
can
following
keep it
you.
as a souvenir.
Yes, you may.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, please give all the presenters another big round of applause. Thank you very much. And I would also like to point out that today we are graced with the presence of a National Assembly member who has visited for a congratulatory remarks. So the congratulatory address will be delivered by Mr. Sejong-oh, a member of the 20th National Assembly. And Mr. Oh has served as a member of the Science, ICT, Future, Planning, Broadcasting, and Communications Committee since May of 2016. And previously, he also served as the president of the Institute for Basic Science. So please welcome Mr. Oh with a big hand.
Thank you for the nice introduction. I'm quite honored to give this congratulatory remark, and I'm also like to apologize for being late. This is kind of out of order, being late, because we had the parliament session at 2 o'clock. You might wonder why I'm giving this remark here. The first private reason is that Chairman Kim Young-hoon is my very close friend from high school. And official reason is that as the presider said, that I'm serving in the subcommittee in the National Assembly of Science, Technology, and the ICT and Future Planning. And so I'm interested in renewable energies and science, technology, and all that. So that will give me some reason why I am here. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, human beings have been living throughout history with various problems, big or small, and strive to overcome an issue that presents itself at that time. One of the biggest issues today is the global climate change. Although there are some people who do not believe this, like people in the White House, but I believe this is really big, big problem here facing humankind. And climate change can have negative effects upon crucial elements indispensable for human survival, such as energy, water, and food, which is the topic of this conference. And diverse suggestions have been proposed as potential solution to these critical issues. And one such idea that has drawn the attention of many people recently is a solution employing biotechnology, especially microorganisms. Indeed, there have been such significant advances in this area of research. Experts say, like Professor Lee and people here, that it is now possible to generate energy and electricity through scientific use of microorganisms. If and when this becomes reality, I think we'll witness another chapter in the development of human history. Furthermore, I anticipate with excitement that this development will lead to solutions to other pressing problems such as atmospheric pollution and global warming. It is also very heartening to hear that microorganisms can be used to process wasted water and generate purified water for humans. This is indeed a welcome news for Koreans, since we are now experiencing severe drought and a shortage of drinking water in some areas of South Korea. In addition to this, there is a growing anticipation that agricultural engineering, making use of biotechnology, including microorganisms, may bring about a new kind of green revolution. Although employment of chemical fertilizers for more than a century has increased the crop production, the resulting destructive effects upon our environment led to the disappearance of the insects and the near extinction of swallows. Agriculture using biotechnology can solve this adverse effect of chemical fertilizers and make great contribution to the resolution of food shortage that human beings are now facing. I believe research on microorganisms will give a new prospect of the future if we combine with the fourth industrial revolution, characterized by the artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, big data, cloud technology, and 3D printing. The fourth industrial revolution is sure to bring magnificent changes to our lives and lifestyles. The current research on microorganisms, I believe, will also be greatly expedited by taking advantage of the tools generated by the fourth industrial revolution, such as AI, robots, and big data. With these thoughts in mind, I've been looking forward to today's conference. As a physicist who have experienced administration in science technology and is now a member of the National Assembly of Korea, I will do my best to ensure that legal and financial systems of Korean society effectively supports your research and the noble endeavors for the mankind. Finally, I'd like to extend my sincere thanks for your devotion to discovering new ways to resolve different difficult problems facing human beings, including energy, water, and food issues, and seeking potential answers that will bring about great changes in the history and future of mankind. Thank you very much, and have a good time.
Thank you, Mr. Oh, for your kind words. And now, ladies and gentlemen, before we move on to the panel discussion, we'll have a short coffee break in order to set the stage. So please enjoy a cup of coffee, and I will let you know when we resume. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for attending the panel discussion, and excuse us for giving you such a short time for the coffee break. We will now have the panel discussion, and once again, I'd like to introduce our moderator for today, Professor Byung-Kwan Jo. The floor is yours.
Right. Good afternoon again. So from now on, we're going to have discussion session following the presentation session. So far, we heard about the great mighty microbes for the energy revolution from 5 speakers. So let's invite 5 speakers again to here. So right next to me, so Professor Cheol-Gun Lee, and next to the Professor Cheol-Gun Lee is Professor Mario, and then Professor Yanis, and then Professor Yuan Kun Lee, and then the last seat will be for you. Okay. Right, so we have 5 speakers here to discuss about the mighty microbes for the energy revolution today. And then as far as we are aware, energy is inseparable relation with water and food. So in this regard, I would like to discuss about these several issues today with the invited speakers. And then first issue is the roles of microbial biotechnology in nutrition and medicine. So Professor Sang-Hyuk Lee, you are the first, first person for this discussion. So in your presentation and publication so far, and you are engineering microbes to produce a myriad of chemicals and proteins for nutrition and medicine. So of course, technically there are competitive methods for the purpose, like chemical synthesis or extraction from natural resources. So can you detail the roles of microbial biotechnology in nutrition and medicine, please?
Okay, so there are many advantages of employing microbes, or more precisely, engineered microbes for the production of these pharmaceutical and drug compounds, in addition to nutritional compounds. However, let me emphasize just 2 parts. So natural compounds can be isolated from plants, but obviously the quality and the quantity of the active ingredients that can be extracted from plants vary according to weather events and also cultivation conditions. So it's very difficult to control. Second, the plant does not produce just a single active compound we want to have. They have a diversified portfolio of chemicals which are not easy to separate from one another. So that's why we want to engineer microbes for specifically producing these natural compounds, and that can be not only season independent, but also quality controlled. And secondly, microbes can be engineered to produce those that cannot be produced by natural systems, such as plant, and that's why there will be added value for the generation of a diverse portfolio of chemical leads that can go into the clinical trials for better drug development. Same applies to nutritional compounds, because you can engineer bugs to produce those that are needed for maintaining human health. So I think this kind of business activities will grow as time goes by.
Okay. So thank you very much. So Professor Cheol-Gun Lee, So your expertise is on algal cultivation using photobioreactors. And as I know, many applications of marine microalgae are on the production of nutrition and medicine as well. And then in this regard, what is your opinion on the same question?
Let me discuss about petroleum first. And when petroleum was discovered, probably the people just burn it. And then they realized that it has a lot of problems like carbon dioxide and then some environmental issues. So because of that, they developed the chemical engineering, which didn't exist before. And then out of the chemical engineering, they developed a whole industry of chemical engineering. And same thing must happen. If you want to convert biotechnology to change our future, as far as like food and energy and water is concerned, then we have to have some kind of new technology. Probably maybe it's a next generation or disruptive technology that is probably pretty different than current technology to develop such a thing. In other words, to use every single molecule in that microbes. For example, we are using all the plastics and the fibers from petroleum, which may look and feel like old traditional silk or cotton, but it's totally different in molecular-wise. Same thing may happen. Even though we use, I don't know, I mean, probably we can develop a technology that convert DNA into fiber like nylon or something else so that we can change our future. So by that way, like everybody else said, microbiology or biotechnology has enormous potential to replace all the current problems or solve the current problems, not just energy and probably all the futures regarding the human life.
Okay, thank you very much. So based upon your opinions, then the microbial biotechnology is indeed the mighty solution for the nutrition and medicine. So let's continue our discussion about the marine microbes as a second issue today. So the second issue is about the critical barriers in the industrial application of marine microbes. So Professor Trudisi, so your expertise is on algal science and engineering. And then I think this question is quite well fitted to your expertise. So what are the critical barriers hampering marine microbes from becoming globally used for bioenergy and food production? So are those related with the technology or sustainability or societal or regulatory? This is quite important issue, I think, for both academia and industry as well. So what is your opinion on this issue?
Yes, thank you for the question. It's, of course, we have all of those barriers are important. But for me, one of the first is technology. Don't forget that we are talking of cultures of hectares. It's the size, okay? We can do a lot in laboratories, in pilot plants, but when we go to hundreds of thousands of hectares, because we are talking of producing food and biofuels, here we need more integration and from the technological point of view. For example, I've seen that we have reached a lot in the field of GMOs and genetically improved microbes, but when this is applied to algae, I feel a little bit, I'm still expecting real advantage in these modified algae. You know, they are low antenna algae, but we expect more photosynthetic efficiency, but when you go outdoors, nothing happens, okay? And this is the first one. Of course, then we have sustainability, but to prove sustainability, we need again large-scale plants. And there are plenty of studies at pilot level, and I don't feel confident with those data. And if we solve these two issues, probably the regulatory issue and the societal acceptance of this will come. So,
okay, thank you very much. So, Professor Chulgun Lee, so you also, this is your turn. So, you heard about the opinion from Professor Trudisi, and then in addition to that, Do you have other concerns or solutions to overcome that the industrial issue of marine microbes?
Yeah, like if I define my talk on marine biotechnology, then like everybody agreed that when you convert one energy into other energy, the efficiency never be 100%. But the reason that so many people can live is in food web, someone just keeps applying the energy on the bottom, which is the microalgae, in other words, the photosynthesis. So we have to rely on the sunlight and the photosynthesis to make our future sustainable. And like I said in my presentation, 70% of our surface of Earth is covered with water. And because of that, we have to use not the land, or we have to use seawater and ocean surface to generate large-scale food or energy and other things. I'm not talking about we have to do only that. Like the batteries we have like so many, like 50 different technologies from lithium ion to like a mangan, and we have so many different form factors. But some of the battery use only handful of them per year. Some battery like AA alkaline is like millions or billions pieces produced a year. So same thing must happen. If you have some food waste or some straw or anything biomass, waste biomass, then you have to use it in small scale. You have to use it. But if you want to replace like 30 or 50% of current fossil energy usage, then I believe definitely we need to look for marine biotechnology, go to the ocean and culture in a larger scale. Of course, like I said before, we have to fuse lots of different technology and integrate all those technology into one to develop very new disruptive technology.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the microbial biotechnology, including the marine microbes, is indeed promising to be a sustainable way to produce a variety of products for mankind, I think. And then, of course, there are many ways to solve the current limitations for that. And then, however, as far as we are aware, there is a debate on the starting materials of microbial biotechnology. So in many cases, microbial processes utilize the food-related starting materials, as you know very well. So this is quite an important problem because there are some countries are suffering from that food supply. And then so in this regard, I'd like to discuss about how we can solve or overcome this problem. So Professor Yuan-Kun Lee, so your expertise on microbial biotechnology as well, related with the various fields. So how can we develop environmentally friendly and sustainable energy, which is not compete with the food? Please.
Thank you. Thank you. This is with the assumption that this is a zero-sum games, and that the food and energy are competing for the same sources. But nevertheless, the food waste and the residue of crop plants could still go into good use as well. I think nevertheless, the conclusion that perhaps crop plants cannot be the alternative energy source is correct. Let me put you into perspective. We did a white paper for the Singapore Energy Strategy Office, and we did calculation, and it come out to be the data is quite amazing. That if we are to produce enough energy for Singapore to reproduce fossil fuel from biomass side, then in this case, if we are growing corns for gasohol, then we need 10 times the Singapore area to produce enough corn for that purpose. That's not quite possible unless we take over Australia. Then, otherwise, if you use the, say, photostatic microorganisms, be algae or their photosynthetic cells, then it requires about 40% of Singapore area, to generate enough energy. It's more possible no doubt it's not feasible because 40%, then where are we going to live? So this kind of scale we're talking about, meaning that this is the way we have no choice, but actually if you want to look for seriously about alternative energy source, then in this case, photosynthetic has been mentioned as well. The peak of ecosystems is the way to go. So the next question, of course, is that how do we make it more efficient in converting the light energy and capture the carbon dioxide, they convert it into storage product we use for bioenergy production, been mentioned as well. So this is the trick. This is the trick, and I think it's very much possible. And at the end of the day, in fact, we probably will not be using crop plant to produce energy for these simple reasons that it's not feasible at all using crop plant, and you have to find a different source.
I see. So, Professor Yanis, so I'm very pleased. I'm very impressed by your achievement related with that robots. So that was fascinating. So also your expertise is quite well fitted to this issue, I think. So what is your opinion on this issue? You know, the starting materials between the food and the bioprocesses. So what is your opinion?
Thank you. Well, I come from an engineering background, and by trade, we've learned to accept limitations and try and find solutions around that. So this dilemma is indeed very real, but we perhaps have to think about what we have at hand and how we can make better use of that. So it was mentioned earlier today as well, the more balanced fertilizers, for example. That's one way of recovering some of the land ability to be fertile. There's also we were joking last night. I was finding out for the first time about the black pig, which is very traditional here, and I need to try it. But the important message there is that some time ago and still today, the tradition was to use the same infrastructure for maintaining that livestock and then using that livestock for feeding. So this the concept of recycling is something we need to take very, very seriously. And if we do it the right way, and if we engineer our microbes to follow the right pathways, then we can have processes at large scale which are, instead of imposing to the environment, they're actually helping to bring back the balance.
So I can learn from the speakers the efficiency and recycling would be the solution for this issue. And then the Professor Sang-Hyuk Lee, I believe you have been thinking about this issue many years, I think. So do you have any solid solution for this?
Well, I'm a chemical engineer, so I start with a simple mass balance. So on Earth, about 170 billion tons of biomass is generated per year. Humans use about 8 billion tons per year. So what happened to the rest? Well, they are in the forest, everywhere, and we are not there to touch those. When some people try to remove some Amazonian forest, there will be a lot of a revolt, right? Which I agree, because we do not know the consequences. That's why we need some macroscopic studies on the ecosystem, because every year, as I repeat, 170 billion tons of biomass generated and gone. So can we more smartly use that will be one solution. But that's not the only solution, because we want to tackle the direct use of carbon dioxide. And there are, of course, a lot of microbes, including algae, which we talked about today a lot, but also bacteria can be engineered to better uptake carbon dioxide. So for example, in my lab, we do not use photosynthetic microbes because they are so slow. I hate them. And I'm a chemical engineer. I look for time versus money, right? That's what chemical engineers do. So we look for fast-growing bugs, but we designed the way based on well-known pathway called carbon capture pathway. So we're making C3 chemical to C4 by fixing one carbon dioxide. And we fortified the mechanism of doing so. So even though you still have to rely on biomass resource for growth, but you are actively fixing one out of 4 carbons from CO2. So that kind of things can be integrated to to provide different carbon sources for the future of microbial technology.
Okay, so that's good. So okay, then let's move our discussion to the microbe-driven water treatment. So Professor Yun Lee, so Singapore is one of the countries of water shortage, and of course Korea too. So I would like to ask your opinion first for this issue. Are there any microbe-driven solution for water problem? If so, then is currently biotechnology able to satisfy future demand? And where is the bottleneck? So these are very important questions, I think. So please.
Sure. This is a very good question, actually. The question of whether there are already microbial processes during the work, the answer is because all water treatment process is basically at least part of it is biological. Top end and bottom end are chemical and physical in removing big stuff and so on. But the central parts are microbiological. Does it do the job? It does the job very well until now. Why until now? Because we estimate that with this present technology, we could only carry a population of 6.5 million, and we are already 5.4 million. So not very far from the caps. So meaning that with the present technology, we can't actually progress very much further. We have to make changes where the bottleneck is which has been discussed several times here, is that biological process, be it microbial cells, enzymes, it has a multiplication of the rate of reactions. And the rate of reaction is determined by nature, and through many years of selection, it select out processes which in fact suit them the most, the best. So therefore, it's no wonder that they survive longer than us, they survive well as well. But the thing is that when we want to use them for our purposes, in biotechnology purposes, in this case, at times they are not very cooperative. They don't want to do that. So as said, we have to get out of the box and trying to create microbes or combinations of microbes in consortium to achieve what we want, or even microbes and enzyme processes in combinations. In all, the question is not so much whether they are processes, but the answer is that, in fact, this is the only way that will solve our problem. This is the only way we can go. We have to make it work, basically.
So that means the microbes, they have potential, and then the remaining things, we have to understand them, and then we have to engineer them for our purpose. So the Professor Tredesi, we talked about the water shortage yesterday dinner, right? So maybe this water shortage is due to the climate change, maybe. So what is your opinion on this?
Yes,
the same issue, yeah.
Yes, thank you. Maybe water, the climate change is intensifying the water shortage. That's for sure. In some regions, for example, in Italy, we are witnessing this continuous desertification, starting from the south of Sicily and then in Tuscany. We are very worried by this. There has been always water shortage in certain areas, but now we are seeing changing. And sometimes instead of water shortage, you have floods, which is, okay, the climate is changed. Solution, not easy, but I've been studying soil microbiology, but growing algae, I think that marine algae, I think that the future will be in the ocean. We have to learn how to use seawater and seawater microorganisms. I know there are collection of microalgae, maybe thousands of algae. We don't know what they are doing, what they are capable of doing. And in this collection, there is only a tiny example of what we have in the ocean. There are millions of strains capable of making probably almost everything. If we learn how to domesticate, how to use them, I'm sure that not now, but it will take time. But in the future, you will be able to have fuel, food, feed, pharmaceutical chemicals without using a drop of fresh water. Well, this is my vision, at least.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, after the water shortage problem, the final issue that I want to discuss is about industrialization of technology. So in particular, micro-based technologies. So the issue is that the investment is critical, yet difficult for helping technology make it happen through the Death Valley of the innovation path. So Professor Innerplis, so what is your opinion on this, the industrialization of technology? So
Thank you. It's an excellent question. It's in fact something we're going through at the moment. But I guess from experience, we've learned that a disruptive technology, which has already been mentioned, will bring resistance by default. This is just the natural forces coming together. If there's an existing market and there's an up-and-coming technology which is disruptive, it's bound to have resistance. And this is the risk with a number of technologies. Many technologies have actually failed. We haven't even seen them out in the commercial world because they didn't survive that death valley. That's the riskiest part of the innovation pathway. The earlier the technology is on the technology readiness level scale, then there is funding available from national research councils, from different organizations to allow that idea to get to the proof of concept. Once it advances and it gets to the highest technology readiness levels, then that's very close to industry. And the industrial sectors, the market sectors will be interested and will take it. But the middle ground, that's the lab work. That's where the technology still needs to prove that it works, but at the same time needs to prove the scale and the economies of scale. And this is where we need to concentrate. This is where we need investment. This is where research labs need to have a lifeline that will allow them to make it through that middle ground, get to the field trial, to the implementation stage, show that the technology can actually do it. It's not a myth anymore, it's a reality, and then have it available for the world.
Okay, that's good opinion, I think. So Professor Sang-Hyuk Lee, so you have developed many genetically engineered microbes for the production of many biochemicals and proteins at the industrial scale. So what is your opinion or solution for making it happen in near future?
So it basically depends on the product type and the competitiveness level. So if you are not competitive with the currently majority, that is petrochemical driven product, then you're out of business. I mean, you cannot just go back that, hey, this is bio-based, please buy this one instead of the petroleum derived one, even though my product is more expensive. Then everybody listen, oh, so you are doing good thing for the environment, but I'm not gonna buy it. So that's the answer typically. So what you have to do is you have to make your process competitive, and some, not all or not many, but some bio-based processes are actually very competitive. So in my case, butanol is quite good, but succinic acid is even better. It's actually cheaper than a petroleum-driven process now. So we have the very high tidal productivity system. So there are certain products that do not have to go through the death valley. But other products, many other products, actually are deep in the death valley because people look at it and, oh, it's gonna take 20 more years until we see some profits coming in. Then no one wants to invest now. But having said that, actually if you look into the future already answers us that it's gonna be the way the future chemical industry will look like. If you consider that the current the amount of available petroleum or fossil oil is 53 years left. Coal, 103 years. So, yes, I know that I'm not going to live until 100 years from now, but at least my children and my grandchildren will live there. And that time, no coal, or if you use it at the same speed as now, which means that we have to rely on different resource, which is bio-resource or CO2 directly, and then obviously we have to use these mighty microbes we talked all day today for the conversion of it. So we are not just talking about death valley, but there is going to be ecosystem, regulation, and governance, all three play together to make things either competitive versus non-competitive. One final example, in France, France already put the regulation approved by the parliament. That is, you are not supposed to use any disposable plastic fork, spoons, knife from 2020, which means now you have to develop all these disposable fork, spoon, knife out of bio-based plastics, no matter what the price is. It's banned. Petroleum-driven ones banned. So that gives you a competitive advantage. So again, governance, regulation, people's thinking, and resource balance all will determine how we can go over the death valley.
Okay, thank you. That's almost the final words of the discussion today. So, okay, I would like to wrap up this discussion session with the final words from the invited speakers. And please give us the wrapping up speech of each of you in a clockwise order. Okay, so please, Chogun-lee.
Yeah, I believe technology will develop anyway. So eventually, almost all the technology, not probably all, but most of the technology will get competitiveness eventually. And as the fossil fuel depleted or any natural resources depleted, we have to find a way to recycle it or reuse it. And probably one of the most important thing, other than the food, energy, and water, the main thing I think is to recycle phosphate. I already mentioned that all these need recycling the phosphate. And microbial biotechnology has been proved by itself already. In other words, when the Earth was formed, the situation or environment of the Earth was very harsh that compared to now. But the environment we have now is because of all the works from the nature, including the microorganisms. So we have to exploit the advantage of these microorganisms to convert our Earth back to the clean and the natural Earth that we used to have. And that's the future that we have to give to our next generation.
Okay, Professor Trezesi.
The word that we are living to the next generation is not a nice word. It's polluted, and we heard the fossil fuels are almost exhausted, phosphate, water. It's a complex situation. I am not happy with what we have done and especially as a professor and a teacher at the university, I feel the responsibility for this. But the hope is that, well, events like this, seeing young people, bright minds, and listening to us, I hope that there will be in the future, given the urgency to act. It's not that we are talking of 100 of years, it's 50 years maybe. The population is growing, and we have seen the problem of food and water. So there is an urgency to act. And we have to integrate among people, we have to integrate among engineers and biologists and agronomists. I'm sure if we individuate specific targets, and there is, of course, investment, but the investment must come at the right moment. We saw in the let's say 5-10 years ago, there was a lot of money in developing biofuel from algae, but nothing happened. Probably it was not the right moment, okay, the right time. So timing, integration, and bringing the young to give them the possibility to operate and to be concentrated on these challenges. Of course, climate change is one of the first, but everything is integrated, as say the title of the conference.
Okay, thank you. Professor Yero, please.
Thank you. Indeed, innovation happens with collective effort, and only when we come together and start thinking how to solve the problems we have at hand, then we can find solutions. and hand a better world, a better environment for the next generations, for our children and grandchildren. Innovation, even with collective thinking, takes time. There are plenty of examples that we've seen so far. The washing machine, I think it took something like 100 years before it became an everyday household appliance. Mobile phone, we all think it only took about 8 or 10 years. Actually, it took more than 50 before it got to where it is. We don't want to have the same time lengths, but it may be inevitable simply because of how certain rates of reaction take place. However, we do have to consider new technologies coming through. I like my robotics. It's my background. Robotics is an up-and-coming technology, and apart from automation, it is going to become a household appliance for the everyday life. So it's basically keeping our minds open to technologies such as these that can collectively allow us to better exploit our natural resources without destroying our planet.
Okay, thank you. Professor Lee.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I fully agree with all the speakers here. There's some degree of urgencies. So we need disruptors. And the changes in government rule, regulations, the people attitude, and so on is going to change directions as well as to regulate the pace of that. And we need investments as well. And I'm going to say something perhaps professors will not be very happy. What's this that the investment perhaps should not come from research agency, but come from companies. The problem with research agency is that we get a grant, I have a big grant, and then my students took 4 years to do what they're asked to do because they have 4 years. Why do we need to do faster than that? On the other hand, for simple reasons that we don't have academic institution, we don't have the bruteness. We are not brutal enough to say that, all right, I have this idea, you put yourself in 6 months, in 1 year, and you can't do it, you can't reach the stage you go. But for the industrial, they in fact represent a big opportunities because anyone who control the water supply, who control the energy supply, control the economy, control the world. So I thought if you don't jump in now, you will lose that opportunity. And for that, it gives the earth, us human, opportunity to survive longer and prosperous as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So instead of the listening your final word from the Professor Sang-Hyuk Lee, I have a special question for you.
I have final words too.
Yeah, no, not final word. So Professor Sang-Hyuk Lee, the chairman of Daejeon Group, Young-Hoon Kim, has the solid vision for the mighty microbes for the energy revolution. So what are you expecting, the future vision of Daejeon Group?
That's a very good question, which requires some political answer too.
Of course.
But before doing so, let me conclude though, very short.
Okay.
My conclusion is simple. Be aware of the coming economy, new coming economy called circular economy. That is use and reuse. And be frugal, don't waste. So that's probably the message, and these mighty microbes will help achieve that goal. Regarding Daejeon's future, I think based on this great vision of mighty microbes for everything, which Chairman Kim proposed, I think from how future should I go into? 10 years from now, maybe?
It's up to you. It's
So-
your expectation.
It requires some preparation period because Daejeon Group is not completely ready to take advantage of all the technology. So let's take 10 years from now as an example. I think the revenue will be about 10 times larger.
Right.
If I go into 50 years, that's even better, but I probably should refrain from saying anything.
Okay.
So congratulations.
Thank you very much. So, okay, this is the end of discussion today, and then I wish all of you enjoyed this discussion. And then I hope microbe-driven technologies will provide the innovative ways to make our planet more sustainable. And then this is our vision of the mighty microbes for the next the energy revolution. And then thank you very much for your attention. And then I would like to special thank the Chairman Kim for the great support and then this great conference. And then please give a big applause to all the speakers. And then thank you very much.
Thank you very much once again to all the panel discussants for their fruitful discussion as well as providing us with food for thought. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the FEW Nexus conference, but please be aware that we do have the IICE forum that's being held at 4:50 p.m. today, so it would be wonderful if you could also join us there. If you are not planning to attend the IICE forum, we have also prepared a cocktail reception outside in the garden, and the reception will be held until 6 p.m. before dinner starts. Thank you very much, and I hope to see you at the IICE forum. Thank you once again, ladies and gentlemen.